Good afternoon. Welcome to another segment of Ramona Talks. My name is Ramona. This is Cayonne Wellness Intuitive Arts, and I call this session Ramona Talks as I like to bring in different wellness guests throughout the month or one per month to talk about different aspects and a place where we can learn and share together. And I'm really excited for today. I have a very good friend of mine. The company is called Source of Balance. And today we're going to be talking about astrology. And I know most of us know what our sun sign is or our zodiac. And really that's as far as it goes. And it's a passion of mine. It's not in my wheelhouse per se, but it's something I do have a great passion for. So I'm very happy to have my friend Cassidy here today from Source of Balance. And let's bring her in.
Hello.
Cassidy, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, very well. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for being
Ah,
willing to sit and really dig into astrology because it's a bit of a big topic. It's something that is very popular mainstream, but I don't think everyone really understands all the nuances of astrology. We just kind of all know the surface, and I put myself right in there because it's true. So thank you
it's
for
very
this.
complicated. There are so many facets, and I
Yeah,
truly am not. I don't like to call myself an expert because it's something that kind of unfolds over a lifetime and much further. I
right,
mean, we've been studying this for eons, and we still are discovering things and figuring things out. And there's so many
right.
different rabbit holes you can go down. So I
Yes.
understand why people sometimes stay on the surface because it's it's complicated.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
And especially, again, a lot of us know our sun signs, but sometimes when you'll ask people, like, well, when were you born? And they don't realize that that specific time and to the second and where you were born is so important in your astrology chart and the reason why. Anyway, I'm going to pass it on to you and just tell us everything. Teach us about astrology. I've got my cup of
Yeah.
tea. I'm ready to go, and I'm excited to learn from you.
Awesome. So we are doing this right at the peak of this full moon, which I think is really cool.
Yes,
So I brought up the chart. I don't know, can we see it right now, Ramona?
absolutely. Let me bring that up.
And so we are looking at what is going on
There
right
we
now,
go.
where all the planets are, what aspects are going on right here at the peak of this full moon. So this full moon is in Scorpio. It's
Right.
happening right down here. And I wish that the ascendant wasn't showing. So the ascendant, and we'll probably discuss this more later, but the descendant is, or the ascendant, I'm sorry, is where the horizon was when you were born or at any given moment. So the horizon right now is in Leo. And when I'm doing these current planets, I kind of wish it would go away. Because it just makes things complicated. Because I don't care where the houses are. Your ascendant
Right.
starts your house system. I don't care where they are right now because we're talking generally. When you get down to specifics of where things are showing up in your birth chart, that stuff gets
Right.
more important. Right. So our moon is down here in Scorpio, directly opposing the sun, and that's what a full moon is. Anytime there's a full moon, the sun is directly opposing the moon, which is why it's so bright. The sun is shining on it.
Okay.
um, and so you can see right here, right next to the sun, is Uranus. So this full moon is conjuncting, or not conjuncting, it's opposing Uranus, but the sun is coming into a conjunction with Uranus. Sun is identity. Moon is emotion. Uranus is radical not transformation, but it's things happening unexpectedly. It's things happening outside of the box that you weren't planning for and you could never have planned for, and sometimes kind of throw you off course. It always comes with radical shift. And so
Okay.
that's very much being activated. It was also activated at the new moon in Taurus, which was just 2 weeks ago. So
Hmm.
radical transformation. Scorpio is also radical transformation. So
Yes,
Scorpio
it is.
is deep, right? It's getting down into the depths of what's within, especially emotionally, especially sensually. It's also this, opposition, if you will, is happening in two fixed signs. Taurus kind of resembles some of Scorpio's traits too,
Okay.
very deep, sensual. They're both very grounded and very stubborn. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the vibe right now is radical change. And these two energies, Scorpio and Taurus, do not like change. So there's a lot of uncomfortable stuff kind of brimming up right now. And this is just being activated even more by some of the other stuff going on. So another big thing I want to note with this is that Mercury is also in Taurus, okay? Not quite in a conjunction over here with these two, but it is in a direct square to Pluto, who is in Aquarius. And what's fascinating is this lunation is in Scorpio, so it's
Mm-hmm.
ruled by Pluto.
Can you
So
just
for
circle it with your cursor so we can see?
Pluto, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's Pluto. That red line right there is the square it's creating to Mercury at exact degrees, 3 degrees. I mean, it couldn't
Okay.
get more exact than this.
Right.
Mercury is your thoughts, it's your communication, it's your belief systems, it's how you analyze things. In
Mm.
Taurus, this is a very grounded energy. We think slower, we plan things out more.
Right.
It's very instead of overworking and in a way that's unsustainable, it's very
Mm-hmm.
methodical and dedicated and consistent. Um, and then Pluto is also transformation. So our thoughts are kind of being transformed at this time. And squares create challenge. Oppositions also create challenge. That's why full moons
Right.
tend to be kind of uncomfortable.
Okay.
Um, Squares also present a lot of challenge. So there's friction between these energies. So we're wanting to get more grounded in the way we're thinking and the way we're communicating. We're wanting to go a
Mm-hmm.
little bit slower and not go so fast. And Pluto is here for that. But Pluto says you have to put down and let die all of the safety you've had around going really quickly.
Right. Hmm.
And this has kind of been a theme too, as there's a lot going on over here in Aries, as you can see. Chiron, we'll talk about that because it's got something going on with Jupiter over here. But Venus, Neptune, Saturn's really close to going into Aries. There's a lot of energy going into Aries, and Aries is very radical, but also fast moving. It's a forceful kind of energy. So there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of kind of push pull there.
Okay.
Um,
I don't think your cursor's picking up, but it's just, so if we were thinking about a clock, is it where the 1 o'clock would be?
Yes. So right
Okay.
around here. Is it picking up now?
Yeah, no, it's not picking up your cursor.
Oh, I see. It's not, is it? Oh, bummer. But yes, around
Yeah.
1 o'clock. Yes.
Okay.
Whereas
And I do see a
Taurus
lot of
is like
action
12
going on
o'clock.
underneath there.
Yes. Lots
Okay.
going on right there.
Okay. All
And
right.
just to talk about that for a moment, just a side note aside from this, just in general,
Mm-hmm.
there's some slower moving planets like Neptune and Saturn who are making this transition from Pisces to Aries over the next, or it's kind of already started, but that energy lasts a while because these planets move so slowly.
Right.
So huge rebirth energy. Pisces is the end of the zodiac, it's an ending, and Aries is a beginning. So all of these
Okay.
energies, and this is collective. We're all feeling this. These create really
Mm.
big collective shifts. We're not missing that in the world that we live in. That's
Right.
they're not the cosmos are not being quiet as far as how we're seeing some of this stuff play out in our world on a collective level.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are the big energies of the full moon in general, as far as
Mm-hmm.
the moon is concerned. Those are the kind of aspects really lighting things up. So big radical transfer. I personally, and I would love to kind of go into this of how it's affecting me, and I'd love to kind of go into too how I use these energies in my own life and my own birth
Yes.
chart.
Absolutely.
So I have Pluto at my fifth house, and I wish the cursor would work, but you can see if you can see down. I guess that would be what around 4 o'clock,
Okay.
where
Yeah.
the 5 is on the chart. For this chart, that would be
Mm-hmm.
the fifth house. You know
Okay.
what might be helpful? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pull up my chart. That's not what I wanted.
And it's funny, as you are pulling up your chart, I was going to ask you, is that a service that you would do for people, that you would do their birth charts and that you could break it down for them?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
awesome.
Okay, it doesn't look like your end has updated yet, but I have it up on my end. That's strange. Maybe I wonder if that'll do it. No, it didn't.
Hmm.
Oh, I see. That's why. It was in a different tab. Okay, so this is my birth chart on the inside here. I don't know. Yeah, we do have our cursor now. That's awesome.
Yes,
And then this
perfect.
is the current chart on the outside.
Okay.
So my fifth house is down here at Scorpio.
Mm-hmm.
Fifth house is passion, it's joy, it's pleasure. It can also be where your children show up. And for me, I thrive on transformation. I love
Mm-hmm.
to get deep down. Like I find so much joy in it. Like it's so much fun to me.
Yes.
But the process of that is not cute because you have to go to the underworld when Pluto and Scorpio are involved. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you have to kind of get into the trenches to find the gold, and then that's where your reward is.
Right.
So when anything's happening in Scorpio for me, it's not comfortable for me. I feel like I'm shedding skin, and my joy isn't now, my joy is later, and so I'm kind of going through it right now.
Okay.
And for me too, it's a lot about letting go of control, and these two energies have a lot to do with control. So I'm finding a lot of areas where I have no control and I want it, and I'm allowing when things don't go my way to inhibit my ability to cultivate joy, where instead of just flowing with whatever change or whatever pivot needs to be made or whatever isn't going my way, I get just angry and I contract instead of allowing it to expand me.
Right.
Which is really kind of the vibe. So what for me, what feels like is happening is a part of me that feels like I need to show up a certain way is dying off. A part of me that, yeah, is really concerned about how I'm perceived, because fifth house is also like where you share your passions, and where you kind of find a little bit of a spotlight. Um, so it's fascinating, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
comfortable. Like this past weekend, a lot of things did not go the way I wanted them to, and
Right.
I truly just was not having it. It's one of those moments where I felt this resistance coming up, and I was resistant to the resistance instead of just like feeling the resistance. It was like
Yes.
double resistance. But I'm kind of in this space where I'm like, okay, I feel resistance, and just
Mm-hmm.
letting that be and like sitting with the feelings of
Yeah.
resistance rather than trying to push those away, because I get into this mentality, and this is kind of Pluto energy, where we get humbled by Pluto. We think we know it all, right? We think we know what we need to do and we know the right
Mm-hmm.
way, and then something happens and we get our egos get busted. It's
Right.
like, no, actually it's this way.
Right.
Sit down. And a rebirth happens in that humility, right? And that's sort of the space I'm in, where I'm realizing like I don't really know what I'm doing or the way like I thought I did.
Mm-hmm.
And when I really like just let go of control and allow spirit to just move through me,
Yes. Yeah.
everything happens so beautifully. I
Yeah.
feel better. It
Yeah.
flows better. I have everything I need, and it's joyful. Like that's where I find
Mm-hmm.
the joy. But
Yeah.
getting through this itchiness that's kind of happening, this friction
And
that's coming up
it's
with
interesting because
Pluto.
I have had friends in the past who will say, I cried all weekend. I'm going through such a transformation. And it's deep. It pulls up things just from the base of where we are. And it's just like I used to say it's like the ocean when the tide comes in and out, and it pulls up all the scum and all the gunky stuff, and
Mhm,
it leaves it here, and then it's clean water going out. And it needs to rise and come out, and it's just part of our change. And it's also making space for newness to come in.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just the thing is coming to terms with the fact that it's going to be comfortable or uncomfortable. Like it just
Yes.
is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get comfortable with the discomfort.
Right.
Find comfort. And in those moments where it feels really uncomfortable, don't skimp on your self-care. Those are the moments where
Hmm.
you really dive into that, and you really give yourself a lot of rest and a lot of grace and a lot of reflection, and just, yeah, like these are the moments where I often go into hermit mode and just take
Hmm.
time for myself. I'll block it off, and I'm just like, no, I'm not talking to anybody, I'm not going anywhere. I just need to be with me and my own energy, and
Hmm.
allow this rebirth to take place. It's almost like a germination phase, or you have to uh, incubate for a little bit.
Yeah. And funny you say that. I tend to do that every December. Now, I used to do that. I'm from Canada. So I used to do that in December because it's so cold. So when I get home from work, I'm not going anywhere. It's just so cold. But I find even now that I'm down here and it's much warmer compared to what I'm used to, but it's
Mm-hmm.
just ingrained in me that every December I just kind of want to go into my shell and go into hermit mode and reflect on, and even if it's not a conscious thing that I'm doing, but I reflect on where I've come, what I've gone through, what I want coming up next. And I just need to shut everything out and everyone out for a little bit just to sit with me.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do the same thing, especially around December. But what's interesting is I'm a Cancer rising, and whatever your rising sign is, the planet that rules that sign is your
Hmm.
chart ruler. And it's kind of like really truly the most important planet in your chart. It's going to be the
The
most
rising.
impactful, the planetary ruler of your rising sign. So for me,
Okay.
I'm a Cancer rising, so my planetary ruler is the moon. So not only is my own moon placement deeply influential to me and who I am, but I'm also
Hmm.
deeply affected by moon transits. So I feel like every month I go through a period where I need to
Right.
just, yeah,
Interesting.
it's fascinating. It's fascinating to watch that play out in my life.
Yeah.
And
Now, you mentioned, was it Chiron? Chiron?
Chiron. Yeah, there's something
Chiron.
going on with Chiron. Chiron is in Aries. Can you guys still see my cursor? Cool.
Yes.
This
Yes.
is still my chart, but
Right.
we can kind of go back to the current. That'll be easier. So
Okay.
Chiron is in Aries right here.
There. Okay.
Chiron is the wounded healer. It's where we are usually deeply wounded, but where
Hmm.
when we face those wounds and we deal with them and we heal
Yeah.
from them, that's also where we can heal others. That's where we find it's our superpower. We can, once
Hmm.
we've done it for ourselves, we can do it for others. But
Okay.
these transits and where it shows up in your chart can sometimes really be very triggering. So that's another thing that's happening right now is, if you'll notice this blue line, so Mercury's here, right? This blue line with
Right.
Jupiter over here in Gemini. This is forming what's called a sextile, which creates ease and almost like an opportunity. So there's an opportunity for healing happening right now here at this full moon too,
Okay.
to expand our consciousness. Gemini is thinking. It's the mind, right? And Jupiter is expansion, and Mercury is also the mind. In Taurus, which is more grounded, but what's really
Hmm.
happening right now is a lot of deep subconscious wounds and beliefs are kind of being dredged up and
Okay.
offered. It's like it's, and again, being offered under this very Pluto heavy lunation to be almost just shed. It's like things are
Right.
just kind of rising right now, especially in regards to how we think and what we believe. What
Hmm.
I feel this is showing up as a lot for the collective is a lot of limiting beliefs around, and Chiron's in Aries, so there's wounds around being seen, wounds around acting, wounds around getting things started, wounds around making a new beginning and leaving the old behind.
Hmm.
Also about what's possible for ourselves. There's this, we've been kind of grown in a society that's put us in a lot of limiting boxes as to what we are able to accomplish.
Absolutely. Yes.
And those there's a lot of wounding there, collective generational wounding. That's
Hmm.
what I really feel. These deep subconscious beliefs that we've been taught for generations and generations are kind of breaking apart and dissolving and becoming new again. And I don't exactly know. I think it's probably very different for everybody how that presents. But what it feels like is authenticity. What it feels like is we're finally able to stop fitting in with everybody and be ourselves and be welcomed within ourselves, you know, as a collective, instead of us shaming one another and being divided for our differences, us finally coming together and saying, yes, we are different, and that is what makes us beautiful. I will never understand you, but I want to love you anyway.
Yes.
I want to be in your presence anyway. My point isn't to understand you. That's not the point.
It's fascinating to hear you explain this, because it's for the collective. This chart is for the full moon in Scorpio, yet everything that you're saying, I am feeling. It is resonating with me, and I'm going through that. And it's kind of like, wow.
Yeah, it's all
so
connected.
It really is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, some other terms that I sometimes hear with astrology are North Node and South Node. What exactly is
are
that?
they? Yeah. So there are nodes of the moon, just like there are kind of nodes to the earth that kind of sit off from the earth. And I'm not a scientist, so I apologize. I don't know exactly the specifics, but the moon has similar nodes that kind of move in almost like a counterclockwise way around the chart. So whereas most of the time the chart goes like this, things move this way.
Right.
For whatever reason, the nodes move this way. So the nodes also look like this. So this is the North Node right here in Pisces.
Okay.
This is the South Node. And they move rather slowly. I forget exactly how long, a couple years maybe, give or take. But the North Node is like a collective pull towards wherever it is. And the South Node is what we're moving away from. Individually in our charts, this shows up as like a lot of times where we've been in a past life, like who we used to be. And the North Node points to what we're striving for in this life, what we're aiming for. And then again, collectively, wherever it is, it's like, as a society, this is what we're moving away from, and this is what we're moving into. The North Node signs actually recently just switched. They were in Aries. The North Node was in Aries. South Node was in Libra, but that actually just shifted rather recently to North Node Pisces, South Node Virgo. So the shift was from moving away from putting everybody else first and people pleasing, Libra, into individualism, independence, being yourself, being headstrong and doing your thing. And now it's shifting into letting go of control, letting go of where you're Virgo, right? Virgo, where you're trying to analyze too heavily, or plan too much, or particularize everything, into connection, and not just connection in like a Libra way, but connection in a we are all connected, we are all one, we are all the same kind of way. So it's a very spiritual pull that we're all feeling as a collective right now, into Pisces, which is really fascinating and fun, and I'm here for it.
And so again, I mentioned most of us know our sun signs. We know the main one, and you'll hear people say, I'm an Aries, I'm a Taurus. But I know that there's also rising, there's moon, and there's Venus. I don't know much about Venus, but I know, and again, when I do my charts, sometimes I will watch for my sun sign, which is Taurus, and I'll also watch for my rising, which is Gemini. And the way it was explained to me way back was that our sun sign is the penultimate of who we strive to be, and our rising sign is who we are as we're rising to get there.
Yes.
As for the moon, I don't know much about that one, or Venus. So if you have any insight or anything you can dig into from your standpoint, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, so I will kind of look at, I'll put it like this. You're so much more than just your sun sign. Your sun sign is truly just a drop in the hat. And depending on what your rising sign is, it may not even be always the most important part of your chart. That's why some people really resonate with their sun sign and some people don't, because there's so much more beneath the surface. Of course, that's a part of you no matter what, if that's where your sun is, because our sun is our identity. And I love the analogy that you made, that the rising is sort of who you are until you get to where your sun sign is. And this is
Right.
another reason why not everybody resonates with their sun sign. I don't always resonate with my sun sign. Sometimes I feel like I am more of a Cancer than I'm a Libra sun. I feel more like a Cancer sometimes because that's what's comfortable,
Yes.
but it isn't really
Yes.
at your core. It's almost like it's like the mask you decided to put on for this lifetime. It's sort of
Right.
how you could put it.
Yes.
Whereas the sun is more your core identity, the you
Okay.
that kind of remains when there's nothing left, when all the layers are shed, if that makes sense.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does.
But then there's, yes, Mercury, Venus, Mars. Those are your inner planets. So we look at Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, and Mars as the inner planets. These are going to be the most impactful because they're inside the asteroid belt of the solar system. They're closer to Earth. So, of course, their influence is going to be more impactful.
Right.
But then the farther away planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, are farther away and they move slower. It takes longer to go around. So less impactful unless one of those planets is your chart ruler. And again, your ascendant, your rising sign, is going to tell you what your chart ruler is. Your chart ruler is always going to be the ruler of whatever sign your rising sign is. Again, for me, that's I'm a Cancer, so I'm Moon. Moon is my ruling planet. For you, if you're a Gemini rising, that'd be Mercury. Mercury would be your chart ruler. So Mercury, you want to look at your Mercury placement. That placement is going to be very impactful for you. It's going to rule a lot of the way you move through the world, almost like putting on a rose-colored glasses in the tone of Mercury energy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about the moon? What about our moon sign?
And moon is your emotions. So, and why it's so impactful is because we're also deeply influenced by our emotions. So it's our inner world. It's what we feel. It's what we can't really make sense of. It's our intuition. It's that primal feminine part of us that doesn't make sense, can't be contained, we can't always make sense of it. But wherever it shows up in our chart is going to tell us kind of what flavor we are feeling. What flavor our feelings come to us in, if that makes sense.
Right. And I was going to ask you about what about when you're born on the cusp? So I am right on the cusp between Aries and Taurus.
So there's no right answer. So first of all, whatever you feel about that is true for you.
Right.
But there's a lot of back and forth about this in the astrology community. I personally feel like the cusp is important because of the degrees, and I'm not an expert about degrees, but I do know those late and early degrees of a sign, what we would call a cusp, are very impactful and powerful. But at the end of the day, if and this is why timing is so important.
Yes.
Because the moon changes so much, right? Like you could be right on that line, but if it's in Aries, it's in Aries, in my opinion. It's in Aries. I don't feel that the other sign has had an opportunity to influence yet, but what you are experiencing is a very transformative degree of that sign. It's going to hit even heavier, depending on whether that's 0 degrees, which is just the beginning of a sign. That's going to feel more new and fresh, whereas a later degree is going to feel more like a death. And that the energy that shows up in that is going to feel that way. Yeah.
Astrology is fascinating. This is fascinating.
It really is.
And you're right, there's so much to it. There really is.
There is. And a lot of astrologers don't agree with what I just said too. A lot of astrologers would say there would be an influence. So again, that's why I say too, take what, if you feel that if you're on the cusp of Aries and Taurus, and you feel like you resonate really well with both of those energies for that placement, then take that for what it is. Yeah.
Okay. So you were saying, tell me some of the services that you do in terms of astrology for people, and where can they find you?
They can. My website is sourceofbalancewellness.com. Look at that. Thank you for putting that on the screen. That's fantastic. I am actually in the middle of this really interesting transformation of my own in my business, where I was offering individual tarot readings, energy healing. You could come get an astrology reading from me. You could come get a human design reading from me. But I'm entering into another interesting phase where I feel called to just offer sessions and you know, if you feel called to astrology specifically, that's great. We can look at that. But I really
Right.
love to just get my face in front of people, feel into your energy, and let
Hmm.
spirit guide me to what I feel called to do. So if you book a session with me, that could be any number of things. I might feel called to look at your astrology. And if I know ahead of time that you're very interested in looking at your astrology,
Hmm.
I will definitely take that into account, or any other thing for that matter.
Right.
Um, but I really just feel called to let spirit guide me in those moments, because I've had a lot
Yes.
of people they'll come in, they'll book a like a tarot reading, and I really feel called to look up their astrology. Like I'm like,
Hmm.
I feel like I need to look at this, and then it ends up being mixed. But sometimes people don't, they're not expecting that, and
Yes.
sometimes people are like, oh, but I booked a tarot reading. You know what I mean?
I love that. And actually, you were not the only one to say that recently of like-minded people in our industry that spirit is, and myself included, that spirit is just guiding us towards an not really a transformation, but more an elevation. Like
Yeah.
it's time to incorporate more and do more and elevate from what you've been doing and
Yes.
give more back to the collective of what we have,
Absolutely.
of what we're able to do. So it's, I mean, you're
Absolutely.
like the third person I've heard this from, again, including me. So it's kind of cool to see that we're all going through it.
Yeah, it feels important at this time that I think you just said this too, but I feel like it needs to be reiterated that we're needing to be, being called to show up with all of our tools at once,
Yes.
not just
Yes.
one thing or the other, but in our multidimensionality, in our
Mhm.
breadth of capabilities, and not
I
feel, and this is where I feel like a lot of structures are falling down, where
there.
for the longest time, I feel like in order to feel understood, because our industry is so misunderstood, we
Mm,
tried to make it more palatable or understandable to our audiences and our clientele.
yes.
But not only are they catching on more, but we're just in a place as a society where it's less about what you're even showing up as, or how you're marketing it, or what you're putting on it, and more
Hmm.
about what energy are you showing up in, because it's you that
Absolutely.
they're coming for. It's not whatever you
Absolutely.
painted it as.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Like, your
it's
people aren't
time.
coming here to talk about astrology today. They're here to be in your energy and
Mm.
then benefit from whatever is being taught.
Right.
Right.
Right. So that said, and the last thing I want to ask you is because I see that you did your chart online, and I'm sure anyone could plug in their information and get their chart. We just might not know how to decipher it. But if they wanted to do that, what are some sites that they could go on to pull up a chart such as this?
Absolutely. So this is a good one. It's AstroSeek.
Okay.
Um, it is actually astro-seek.com, when
Okay.
you plug it into your
Hmm.
browser. I love this one. There are many others. I can't really speak to them because I don't use them. Somebody
Right.
showed me this one a long time ago, and I've tapped into a couple others, and I didn't like the format of how this came out. It just
Hmm.
seemed, sometimes other sites will not have the to the degree specificity of like where a house is. It'll
Right.
be more or less like your ascendant's Leo, but look, only some of it is Leo. Like, it
Yes.
doesn't account for the fact that only this teeny tiny bit is Leo.
Hmm.
It'll just say the whole first house is Leo, whereas actually most of the first house is Virgo. I want to see that. That stuff matters to me.
Yeah.
Those
Okay.
discrepancies are important, and a lot of charts don't show that, and it just irks me.
Hmm.
So I love this one. I also want to mention too, I have a resource if you are really interested in learning how the sun and moon transits affect you specifically
Okay.
in your birth chart. I
Hmm.
have a toolkit available on my site that will teach you how to do that. It gives a workbook on how to work with these energies, kind of how to work with each and every full and new moon. It's a long workbook, so you're going through each. It's like a year long, right?
Okay.
Um, then it's got cheat sheets for what all the transits mean, or what each planet means, what each sign means, what each house represents, some other goodies in there, and then also an informational video where I walk you through how to look at your chart and find
Okay.
out what houses are ruled by which signs, so that you know
Oh,
exactly where these transits are coming up in your
Right.
chart and what energies, what parts of your life are being activated.
Hmm. Very
Yeah,
cool.
it's
Very
called
cool.
the Cosmic Flow Toolkit if you go to my website.
Okay. All right. So we'll put your website up again, and that's sourceofbalancewellness.com.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Cassidy, thank you so much for this. This was so in-depth, and I know that there's so much, and there's probably so much more just to get into, but just giving us the little, tip off to really start to understand. I've seen these
Absolutely.
charts all the time. It's just like, yeah, I don't know what
It's
that
a
means.
lot. They can be very, very overwhelming. I
It
totally
is. It
understand.
is.
Yes.
But
Yes.
thank you. Thank you so much for
Yes.
joining us and talking about this. And it's
Absolutely.
always a pleasure to see you. It's been a while.
It
And
has.
hopefully
Yes.
I'll
It's
see
so
you
good
at
to see you
some of the
too. Thank you
markets
so much
this
for
year.
having me.
Yeah,
Really
absolutely.
appreciate it.
Absolutely. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the
Thank
full
you.
moon as best you can.
Yes, I'm gonna go get my witchy on.
And I will talk to you later. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us. We're so blessed to have Cassidy, and I love learning about astrology. Again, it's been a passion of mine, but there's so much, as you can see, to learn about. So join us next month for our next wellness guest. Getting ready to line it up. So I won't tip it off here. I'm going to keep it a surprise. But do join me later. I will have the one card channeled readings on IG Live, and then keep an eye for the new moon readings here on YouTube, as well as the monthly horoscopes, zodiac horoscopes at the end of the month. Thank you for joining. Ramona from Cayonne Wellness Intuitive Arts. See you next time.